I want you to read this stuff and understand it, particularly some of the questions. And when we get through with this, probably next week sometime, we'll have a quiz, all right, a state quiz. Most errors are not because you don't know the information, but you misread the questions, all right? So it's really important that you read critically and understand what it is, what everything is, okay? It's very, very important. The difference between expired contract and inactive contract, all right? What you, those kind of things are completely different based on what you've done, and we'll talk about those. Our willful misrepresentation, our willful omissions, right? All of those things. What is it? What happened? Read it. Make sure you understand it, okay? Cold, okay? This is the state, what we're going to talk about tonight, tomorrow, or tonight, Thursday, and when we finish up, hopefully by Monday or Tuesday. This is the state, big 3/4 of the state stuff. It's on here. We're going to talk about. Go through the PowerPoints when you're studying for the state, and don't forget to look for the the PowerPoints that have the little North Carolina flag on them. Don't forget to look for the ones that have that PT red arrow, because the PT red arrow came to us from the Real Estate Commission and said, these are what students have the most problem answering. So if they're telling us what they're having trouble answering, I'm going to say that they're probably going to ask it. All right. So as you're going through there, make those notes. Make those notes. Okay. So Appendix A, this is your North Carolina License Law and Rules comments, right? License Law and Rules comments. Who needs a license? Who needs a license? If you list it, lease it, buy it, exchange it, auction it, negotiate it, or sell it, if it's real property for others for some compensation, you need a license. Now, that was a neat little acronym that came up with LL Beans, and I think we talked about this in chapter 1, maybe 4 or 5 weeks ago. All right, so if you can remember LL Beans, that's fine. Use the funnel. Keep that in mind. There are 3 different parameters in that funnel itself that you're seeing on the board here. If all 3 of those appear, you need a license. If 1 is missing or 2 are missing, you don't need a license, okay? So if you are selling your own real property to make money, do you need a license? No. Does a for sale by owner need a license? No. He's selling his own property, right? Okay. If I am selling it for you and you're paying me, doesn't have to be money either, it's compensation. All right. Do I need a license? Yes. So if I'm doing it for others and I'm dealing with real property, property management's the same thing, and I'm doing it for some sort of compensation, I need a license. All right. I need a license. That's really all it is. And that includes auctioneers. Now, we talk about this later, we're going to see this, but an auctioneer needs a license. They would be the broker in charge. All right, they would be the broker. Now, the auctioneer is not always the crier. And the crier is the one who's doing the auctioning, working the crowd, rallying them up. All right. He doesn't need a license, but the auctioneer, the person who runs the auction, they need a license. Okay. The crier does not. He's working representing them. License law and rules comments. Okay. LLRC, this is this book. Hang on one second. All right. This is the highlighted version. This starts on page 106. All right. I just gave you a version that doesn't have the highlights. If this is too difficult, that's okay. You don't have to use this one. Some people like it, some don't. It's not a big deal. All right, there are versions of others. Page 106 through page 128. Okay. And you can see that a lot of these stuff, there's a lot of detail here. A lot of detail. Okay. So we're going to read through this, all right? I'm not going to read through it because you'd be asleep before we got to 8:30, all right? So you have to read through it, and you got to make sure you understand what this is, all right? I'm going to go through the PowerPoints, and we're going to talk a little bit about it, but not this. All right, so from page 106 through the end, page 126, all right? 127, all right? You got to read them. Got to understand them. Print them out, write them down, take your notes, do whatever, ask your questions. Okay. And this explains everything. This explains everything. Okay. So that's what this is. I put different like broker in charge stuff. I put in one color. If you see anything in this that's in dead red, like this, right? Make sure that you know what's in there. There's a couple of sections that are big red, like disputed trust funds. There's a couple others that are in there. That's important stuff. That's all important because it's all going to be testable, but something of that nature, you want to make sure that we understand it. We'll cover that, but we want to make sure that we understand it. This in the yellow is more or less every day what you're doing, all right? Your broker price opinions, how to do them, and more of just a basic broker information. But no, there's no science here. It's all important. It's just broken down so that you're not cross-referencing. They used to make this this booklet. They used to have it highlighted in sections, so that if you look at some of the old versions, matter of fact, if you look at your book version, different sections will be highlighted in a gray. And again, they just pointed out that those were the important sections where you can get your basic learning. So that's for everybody. All right. So you can go ahead and do that or do without it. It's okay. It's all important. None is more or less important than the others. All right. All right. North Carolina, you need a license to sell timeshares. Okay. License to sell timeshares. If you go across the border to South Carolina, and some of you may be not so far away from South Carolina, you don't need a license to sell timeshares. You don't need a license at all. You can just walk in off the street and then just say, hey, I want to sell timeshares. All right. Okay. So you don't need a license in South Carolina. You do in North Carolina. Don't forget your rules of 5 in timeshares. It's for 5 periods over 5 years. And you have a 5-day right of rescission. And they have to keep the money in the trust account for 10 days. Right? Remember those? Talked about those earlier. That's your rules of 5 for timeshares. All right, don't forget those. So we have some exemptions to the licensing requirements. Okay. So if I'm selling my own property, or I'm selling property that my business owns, I don't need a license. Technically, I'm selling it for myself. Technically, I'm selling it for myself. Okay. So I would be considered a for sale by owner, if you will. If I work for a company that pays me on a W-2, regardless if I sell one or at least one property or not, I'm going to get paid the same amount all year long. I'm going to get a W-2 at the end of the year. If that's the case and they're paying me to sell company property, I do not need a license. I'm not getting paid a commission. Okay. I'm getting paid to work for the company, not a commission. I don't need a license. For sale by owner, no license. If I have apartments to lease and I want to do it myself, I don't need a license. Okay. If I have a business that owns properties, I don't need a license. As long as I'm doing it. They have to say, hey, Shanta, I'm going to pay you $100,000 a year. You're going to get $2,000 a week for 50 weeks, and you're going to do this. Okay. And then you go sell a property, so you don't make any more or any less. That's what you're going to get. All right. So you're not getting paid on commission. Okay. You get paid at the end of the year, you get that W-2. Yeah, Clayton Homes is probably a good example, right? You're going to be in you're going to come in, you're going to sell those mobile units in some cases, or those prefab units in some cases, and you're going to get paid a salary. You get paid a salary, doesn't matter what you sell, right? And you're going to get paid. You're going to get that check. All right. So a license is not required for an attorney practicing law. Now, let's talk about that for a second. If an attorney is doing closings, if he's doing title searches or anything else like that, he doesn't need a license. But if that attorney takes Tuesdays and Thursdays and goes out and shows property and buys and sells it as an agent, he needs a license, okay? He needs a license if he's working in the buying and selling end of it. If he's just doing title searches and closings and things of that nature, he does not need a license, all right? Let's be clear on that. An appraiser doesn't need a license because they have an appraisal license. They don't need a real estate license, okay? They don't need a real estate license. Mortgage bankers and brokers doing mortgage banking broker work, right? They don't need a license. A trustee in a bankruptcy does not need a license. They're just disposing of the property, okay? If you are the guardian, if you're an executor, right, you don't need a license. If somebody put me in guardianship of someone, that means I can act as them. It would be as if they were selling it themselves, a for sale by owner, if you will. Same thing with the executor of an estate. You're eliminating the estate. You're not selling real estate for profit. You're just selling it to clear out an estate, right? That would be what the executor would do. So we do not need that, all right? Just FYI, you do not need the GS numbers here. GS stands for General Statute 93A-2C, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. You don't need that, okay? You're not going to get asked the general statutes. You do need to know the rest of these, though. You do need to know this. Okay, a license is still not required. A business entity selling or leasing their own property, this is what we talked about earlier, right? You're selling your own property, you don't need a license. The mere crier of the sales at an auction, we talked about this. The auctioneer has to have one. The auction house has to have a company license, okay? But the person who's just doing the crying does not, right? Any person acting as an attorney in fact under the power of attorney. They don't need a license. Don't need a license. You know, when my dad, before he passed, he gave me his full power of attorney. I could act as him, sign his bills, do everything else. I ended up selling his house, everything else, right? So I didn't need a license. I happen to have one, but I didn't need it, okay, to act as a power of attorney, right? And again, we talked about attorneys at law, trustees, housing authorities. You're working as a, you're not working in the real estate business. Pay attention to this now because there's a little bit of tweaking here. An unlicensed salaried employee and your assistants may not, okay, may not. You may not show property for sale, show real property for sale. Now, that's important and it's in red. If you have an assistant, right, you start your business up, you get an assistant, you cannot have them show property for sale. But let's say you're a property manager and you hire that assistant. If you're a property manager and you hire the assistant, they may show vacant units for rent. So you may want to make a note there somewhere. And we'll talk about this. We'll hit this down the road a little bit again. If it is a sales transaction and a property is for sale, an unlicensed assistant may not, right? Or a salaried and unlicensed, any person unlicensed may not show that property for sale. They may not hold open houses either. However, if you are a property manager and you hire someone without a license, they can show vacant rental properties. Okay, so there's a little bit of a trick there, and it's just a way to trip you up. Negotiate. So an unlicensed salaried employee can't negotiate any contracts. They don't have a license. That's your job. Can't include any contract, including sales, employment, or management contracts. Can't do any of those. All right. They can't offer opinions, advice, explanations, or interpretations. All they can do is point and say, hey, let's go bring you into my boss. He's got a real estate license and let's let him talk about him. That's all I can do. Fill out administrative forms, things of that nature. Fill out forms that you've endorsed, things of that, or that kind of thing. But they may not write them. They may not act as if they're in a position of trust, okay? So unlicensed salaried employees and assistants may may, here's those PTs again. They may type, right, fill in the blanks of offers, leases, and other documents from broker-prepared drafts. So you got to prepare the draft. They can type it in, they can fill in the blanks, they can do all that other stuff, but you have to prepare it, okay? So basically, this is ministerial. And if working in property management, they may show rental units and complete pre-printed lease forms. Again, you're going to have to put together the lease forms and they can complete those pre-printed. They cannot sign them, you have to sign them. And they can place advertising written by the broker for properties listed for sale or rent. You still have to write it up, they can place it. Let's say you're all going to get broker's license. So let's say you have an assistant, you hire somebody. So the best thing you can do is hire an assistant to do all the administrative stuff. If you have a listing that's regardless, if you have a listing, your assistant may not, if they don't have a license, they may not go show that property. If they have a license, they can go show that property, but they don't, okay? If they don't have a license, they can't go show it. However, if you manage properties, if you're a property manager, lease, and you're busy, your assistant, whether they have a license or not, can go show vacant rental properties. They're allowed to do that, okay? Keep in mind the funnel now. Let's talk about something different. I need three things. If all three of these things are in that funnel, I need a license. It has to be real property, condos, houses, townhomes, things of that nature. I have to do it for somebody else that owns that property, and I have to be paid compensation for selling it. Those three things means I need a license. All right? Very important to get that distinction in your head. If you're working in property management, you can show those rental units and place advertising. When you pass these exams, there's only one type of license in North Carolina, and that is a broker's license. Now, we have 4 different stages of broker's licenses, but it is just one, really, a license, a broker's license. So when you pass these classes, pass these tests, you're going to get a provisional license. You'll be a provisional broker. Now, this provisional broker has to work directly hand in hand with a broker in charge for a period of time until that provisional broker does 3 more 30-hour classes. You need 90 more hours after this one. So there is a 301, 302, and 303. I'll show you those in a couple of minutes, all right? So you need to know that you're going to get a provisional broker's license. Once you pass those 3 classes and the school reports it automatically, you will automatically get a full broker's license. You don't have to do anything else. You don't even have to register it. Pass those 3 classes, the school reports it to the state will mail you a full broker's license. That's all pretty cool, pretty easy. So let's say you're in business for 2 years and you want to step up a little bit. You want to start your own company. Well, then you have to be a broker in charge. Okay. Now we're going to hear this down the road a little later. However, every building must have a broker in charge there. And no broker in charge can have more than one building, more than one group of individuals. Okay. So if you work out of Hempstead, you have a XYZ Realty in Hempstead, you are the broker in charge for that one, and you can have another one. Have one, but we need one. Every building has to have one, every location has to have one, and that broker in charge can't have more than one. Okay, North Carolina. All right, 2 years. So I've been doing this I've been working as a broker for 2 years. I finished my provisional license. I did all my classes. I've got 2 years of experience. I want to go out on my own. I want to start my own company. Well, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply to the state after those 2 years. You got to have 2 years of experience. And I'm going to say to the state, Mr. Real Estate Commission, I want to be a broker in charge. And they'll say to me, Sam, that's all well and good, but you have 120 days to take this 12-hour course. If you've taken it before, 2 years of experience after your provisional license, okay? So if you've taken it before this course, this 12-hour class, that counts, and you passed it, and you send that information into to the commission, and they'll give you a broker's in charge license. Otherwise, you have 120 days to do this 12-hour class, all right? So in that period of time, you are called broker in charge eligible. You've applied for it. You told them what you were going to do. Now you're going to go take the class, okay? Pass the class, do everything okay, and you get a broker in charge. Now you're a broker in charge. Now you can open up your own building. You can be your sole proprietor. You're going to see later that that's going to be important when you're a sole proprietor, because you can't advertise without being a broker in charge. You can't take, you can't hold other people's money without being a broker in charge. You can't hire anybody without being a broker in charge. So if you want to go open up your own business, you need to be that, okay? You need to be that, okay? So that's broker in charge eligible. So that's 4. Now, the last one there is a limited non-resident commercial broker. And we're going to go over these again in some detail, but I wanted to go through them while we had them up on the slide. A limited non-resident commercial broker. Let's say my company is in Virginia and they want to expand into North Carolina. And I work for the company. I work for this company. And I have a real estate license, and it's a commercial license, and I want to go into North Carolina to help them expand into this state. Well, what I can do is do a document of affiliation with a broker in North Carolina that basically says that I'm going to affiliate with this company, and they are going to be responsible for my actions. And then I can come into the state of North Carolina and sell only commercial property, buy and sell commercial property. So that means that I can bring my company in, okay? So I don't need to go through the licensing. I don't need to go through everything else. I would just need a North Carolina broker to allow me to affiliate with them, and they would be responsible for my actions. That's what a limited non-resident commercial broker is. So we'll go through this, all right? Provisional broker status. You've completed the 75 hours, right? Which is this class, plus passed that exam. You need to get 90 additional hours of post-license education. 90 additional hours. You have 18 months after you've gotten your provisional license to do this. 18 months. And there are 3 classes. It's 301, 302, 303. These are provided by the state to the companies. All right. The first one's a contracts and closing course, 30 hours. Second one's a brokerage relationship course, same thing, 30 hours. And then the third one is a licensed law course, 30 hours, 369. There's a quiz or a test at the end of each one. You need to pass it. When you get your provisional license, you take this class, you pass the test, boom, you get your provisional license. And there's a few folks that are doing this now. They're not affiliating. They're leaving. The provisional license you get will be inactive. It'll be inactive. So you have to find a broker in charge who will activate your license. You got to go to work for somebody, because that broker in charge is going to activate it, saying that they are completely and totally responsible for you and your actions. Pretty lofty goal. What's happening now is, because these 3 classes, right, People are just leaving that provisional license inactive and going and knocking out these classes. And then you don't have to worry about the provisional license at all. You'll get a full broker's license. You'll get a full broker's license. So there's no minimum time you have to spend in a provisional broker before you get a full broker. You have to spend 2 years before you get a broker in charge license. Okay. So you can just stay inactive and not affiliate with anybody and just go do these 3 classes and then get a full broker's license. You certainly can do that. We have some folks doing it. Because if you don't do it in 18 months, if you don't complete these in 18 months, and you say 18 months is a long time, 18 months is not a long time. You're going to get busy. You're going to start doing things. You're going to start learning things. You're going to start running out, selling properties. If you don't do it in 18 months, your license automatically goes inactive. And then every bit of real estate that you were doing at that point has to stop. Can't even hand out a business card. Okay. So it's really important that you do this. Okay. You got 18 months from when you get your provisional license. Some folks are just going out there and knocking it off right away. You can do it any way you want, but you got 18 months. And you don't have to take them in order. You can take 303 first if you want. All right. It's 301, 302, 303, whatever way you can get them. All right. So it says here, you may complete all 3 courses immediately upon license issuance. Once you get that provisional, go do the other ones. But a provisional broker, after you pass the test, that's what you're going to get. You're going to get an inactive provisional broker's license, but you just got to find a broker in charge who will activate it for you. There's no like time period or anything like that. You just got to find somebody who will represent you and let them send it to the, sign off on it and send it to the state. If you're a full broker and not under a broker in charge, a sole proprietor, yes, there is limited things you can do. You can't do any type of advertising. You can't do any type of, you can't do any hiring. You can't hold other people's money. I think that's about it. Problem is that you can't even hand out business cards because business cards are advertising. So you literally can't do anything until you become a broker in charge. Unless you're sitting around your house and you know people who are going to buy and sell, or maybe, so it's a little tougher until you get that broker in charge license, right? It's not, I mean, the broker in charge license is what, 12 hours worth of work and 2 years of experience. It'd be good to have the 2 years of experience anyway. Once we do that 90 hours, our provisional status is automatically removed. We're a full broker. Provisional brokers and their brokers in charge are subject to disciplinary action for any violations the provisional broker makes. Keep this in mind. You're getting that broker in charge to take responsibility for you. That's why you're getting a provisional broker's license. That broker is in charge, is responsible for every single thing that you do as a provisional broker. So if you make a big mistake, guess who else is getting charged with the mistake? Both. So both of you can lose a license. Both of you can be disciplined. All right. So when a broker in charge takes on a provisional broker, it's a pretty big step. So you're going to face an interview and they're going to make sure that you are who you are and what you want to do. A provisional broker status. This is you again, continue. You cannot work independently or dual affiliate with multiple firms. In some cases you can, if you're a full broker, you can affiliate with multiple firms, okay? Not as a provisional broker, all right? You can only work for one broker in charge, right? So you have to be supervised by that broker in charge. PT here may not receive compensation from anyone other than the supervising broker. This has been changed. Everybody has to now get paid by their supervising broker, but a provisional broker has always had to get paid by them. Before, another company could pay a full broker. Now that other company has to pay the broker in charge, and the broker in charge filters it down to the agents. Now, also, your initial license as a provisional broker is going to be inactive. Inactive. And it has to be activated by your broker in charge. Right? Then you got to do your 90 hours, your 3 30-hour classes. Okay? And automatically remove that provisional status. So we did that. We're all good. We completed the 75-hour class, passed the state exam, satisfied the post-license education. All right. So now we can elect to operate independently as sole proprietor, or we can work for a broker in charge. Now, 2 key points there. No advertising as a non-BIC sole proprietor. If you are a sole proprietor, you may not advertise. All right. Advertising is word of mouth. Advertising is handing out business cards. It's not just posting up a billboard. Okay. And no trust account as a non-BIC sole proprietor. Now, you can get away with this. Nowadays, the attorneys will hold trust money. So you can get away without having a trust account. Sometimes it's a lot less aggravating if you just let the attorneys handle it, hold a trust fund, right? Trust money. When we get in chapter 9, we'll get into due diligence and contracts and trust money and things of that nature, earnest money. But sometimes that's not the worst thing in the world, okay? But the advertising part is the difficult part. You can't tell anybody you're selling real estate, right? So being a secret agent for the first couple of years is not very fun. And you can qualify and elect to self-designate as a broker in charge. Again, if you're practicing alone, you have to declare as a broker in charge if you want to hire staff, licensed or not. If you want to hire other people to work for you, if you want them to be licensed, anything. If you want that, you need to be a broker in charge. If you're holding trust funds, you need to be a broker in charge, okay? And if you're promoting brokerage services, including oral solicitation of brokerage clients and providing business cards, you need to be a broker in charge. You can't do it without that, okay? Now, in those 3 things there that they just talked about, those are the key jobs of a broker in charge. Staff, being responsible for staff, right? Trust money. Trust money is like key number 1, okay? They're responsible for earnest money, trust money. And then obviously advertising. Everybody's advertising. Broker in charge is responsible for the advertising. All right? So these 3 points, unless you're a broker in charge, you can't do them. All right. And as of July of 2021, full brokers affiliated with a firm must be compensated by their broker in charge. You used to be able to get directly compensated from another company, but you can't do that anymore. It's got to go through their company.
If you like this video, feel free to share it with a friend. For more real estate education content, please subscribe to the channel. From all of us at Seacoast Real Estate Academy, thank you for watching.